From watching a lot of streams and gathering a lot of builds from other players, I have seen two methods of building Paragon boards at the moment, and it might be possible that you are currently doing something wrong. And the first one favors the philosophy of maxing out a glyph by putting the glyph into the best attribute Paragon board possible, disregarding legendary nodes almost completely, and just trying to min-max the glyphs possible placement to get the most attributes in range and therefore scale the glyph up as much as possible. So you could call it maxing out the glyph. That's how I refer to this method of building the Paragon board. There's also another way of building your Paragon board which favors efficient pathing way more than maxing out the glyphs, and focuses a little bit more on hitting and enabling more damage buckets. And we will get to that next. But first, I'm going to explain to you the first type of Paragon board building, which I refer to as maxing out a glyph, so to say. So how does maxing out a glyph, the more commonly used Paragon building method, work? So you found this glyph, Aya, that gives you 1.5 increased damage while berserking for every 5 strength that you find in range, and you happen to build or heavily rely on berserking. And because of this method wants to find the Paragon board which has the highest number of strength node in range to make this glyph as powerful as possible. Therefore, I call it maxing out the glyph. So let's say you like the Aya glyph, then you go to Don the Crown's incredible mega doc for the his Diablo University. You go to your Barbarian tab, you see which of the Paragon boards has the highest strength, which is in that case Carnage, and therefore you know you want that glyph into the Carnage socket. So now you know Carnage and strength, so you got your Aya, you got your Carnage, and now you put that glyph into that socket, and then you go about collecting all of these strength glyphs. So maxing out the Paragon glyph would look like this. This would give you the maximum number of strength possible in a glyph's radius, and that would make the Aya glyph as strong as possible. But you can already see the disadvantage here, and that is that you are spending way more points on trying to get all of these strength nodes in range. And when you keep doing this, you will run into the problem of not having as much Paragon points anymore to access other very good stuff. So you would leave out these Paragon boards or rare nodes or magic nodes just in favor to max out your glyph. That is basically method 1 that I'm seeing currently. Now, if you would keep doing this and add other Paragon boards, let's say whatever, Hammerage right here, and then you would turn it so that the glyph socket is right next to there because you want to go for the glyph and again max it out because you have found that Hammerage has also the second highest strength, as you can see right here, and you want to again socket a glyph here which has a strength requirement, and therefore you said I really want a lot of strength to make that glyph as powerful as possible. So you would do the same stuff here again, and while you would be doing this, you would obviously again invest a lot of points in strength, therefore not having that much for the other boards. Let's say you would take all of this stuff, and you would already take all this strength stuff right here. I think that's all we have. Yeah, now look at this. Okay, you have this, and now you're pathing out this way. And you keep doing this. And this is really inefficient pathing, as you can see, but you get the benefit of maxing out the glyphs, right? So remember this tile set and the layout and how the pathing is going to be. And I'm going to show you the second method that I see way less often at the moment, which is a little bit harder to do, but has probably more benefits. Let's see how this looks. This is my not final Barrage 50 and up Rogue Paragon board that I built. It's not really finished at the moment, but it's really close to finish. I want to tweak it a little bit more, maybe change 1 or 2 glyphs around, but nonetheless, the pathing shouldn't really change that much because, as you can already see here, this looks way more like straight lines and not really like the big clusters that you can see here. Yeah, this board, for example, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And if you compare them, This is definitely way more efficient pathing. What does this method that I again see way less often at the moment, what does this give you? So the obvious benefit here is that the efficient pathing and not focusing on maxing out your glyph, but just barely getting the requirements, for example, this one, the Ranger glyph. It is a very good one that is also scaling with Dex, but I only focused on hitting the requirement and then pathing out of it and not really maxing the glyph as we saw in the first method. This gives you way more access to more rare and magic nodes. So for example, Hunter Killer right here and this part right here with more vulnerable damage. If I was maxing out this glyph and this glyph with scaling glyphs like we saw in the first example, then further down the line, I probably wouldn't have that much access to either this whole board or to all of this nice stuff like magic and rare nodes right here. At the moment, we can't really say if one or the other method is going to be superior, but what we can definitely say is that the method with the more efficient pathing is going to unlock more magic and more rare nodes instead of unlocking and maximizing your glyphs. So if you think this through, when you probably already seen Woody's video on his plan to go to 100, and that really sounds like something that you should be doing if you care about reaching the end game faster. So you shouldn't really be going into nightmare dungeons at level 50 instantly. So while you're going from 50 to 70, you don't really have access to glyphs because you're not going into nightmare dungeons where these can drop. So why would you focus on unlocking and maximizing glyph parts when you can just get rare nodes and magic nodes that you just have to pass through and they don't need to drop for you? So if you have been building your Paragon boards like this, take into consideration that the glyphs have an RNG effect of dropping, obviously. So even if you build your Paragon board like this and really want to max out strength, you still have to acquire the Ire glyph that you want to put there. Yes, you could put something else there, but how valuable is that going to be, and how much player power are you going to sacrifice for it? So as I said in the beginning of the video, we really don't know what is going to be the meta for building this. Is it going to be maxing out a glyph and trying to pump up a scaling glyph as much as possible? Or is the meta going to be more efficient pathing, getting more magic and rare nodes, and therefore unlocking more damage buckets? So I personally think that the more efficient pathing option, so number 2, is going to be way stronger between level 50 and 100. And after level 100, we have to again reevaluate which is going to be better, because we currently don't know if maxing out a glyph is going to be stronger or unlocking more rare nodes and magic nodes and therefore unlocking more damage buckets is going to be stronger. If you don't know what these damage buckets are, Goblin Inc. has made an incredible video that you really need to watch to understand how damage is going to be calculated and how you can maximize your damage by pathing efficiently like this and therefore unlocking way more damage buckets. So a damage bucket, for example, is a classic one would be critical strike damage. There are buckets that give you critical strike damage, and they're all going to be considered as one type of damage, if you want to call it that way, or one way of scaling your damage. And then there's going to be another bucket, which is going to be, for example, this for rogues: enemies affected by trap skills take 10% increased damage from you, which is going to be a different bucket. And since they are going to be multiplied against each other or with each other, unlocking a lot of buckets is going to multiply your damage tremendously. So when knowing this, maybe this second method of taking as much stuff as you can and therefore maximizing the amounts of buckets that you have is going to be superior, but we don't know yet for sure for endgame, which is 100 and up, right? But I think for 50 and 100, it's not going to be efficient if you just go to Crown's Megadoc and socket the glyph that you want into the highest attribute one and max out that glyph. I really, especially because you have to first find that glyph, and nightmare dungeons are going to be RNG based if you get the drop at all, right? So if you have been building your Paragon boards like this, definitely try out or have a look at the example build that I have here that I'm going to link in the description below. And also, if you don't know what damage buckets are, you have to watch the video of Goblin Inc. that is also going to be linked in the description below. I hope this was helpful to you. If you still have any question, make sure to drop a comment that I'm going to answer as fast as I can, and I'll see you next time.